Meeting the love of their life, eloping, and getting married is something many teenage girls dream of. Sophie Hartwell was no different. A bright, adventurous girl just 16 years old, Sophie was swept off her feet by a financially secure and charming 28-year-old pilot, Lucas Verona, who made a grand gesture by flying his helicopter over her neighborhood in Vancouver, Canada. Lucas, with his charisma and boldness, quickly won Sophie's heart. Against her parents' wishes, the two eloped and tied the knot. What initially seemed like the perfect romantic tale of love would later unravel into a gruesome tragedy that shook the world. On the early morning of Wednesday, June 2nd, 2021, at 4:30 a.m., Lucas awoke to chaos in his rented two-story house, located in the quiet suburb of Belmont Ridge, just outside of Toronto. Before he could fully comprehend what was happening, Lucas was ambushed by three armed men wearing dark clothing and ski masks. They were swift and ruthless. Lucas, though fit and strong, was no match for them as they tied his hands and legs with ropes, blindfolded him with duct tape, and rendered him helpless. The intruders then turned their attention to Sophie, now 20 years old. Sophie and Lucas had an 11-month-old daughter, Mia, who was sleeping in a crib beside their bed. The baby woke up crying, her shrieks piercing through the tense silence of the room as the intruders demanded to know where the couple had hidden their money. Despite Sophie and Lucas's attempts to cooperate, the night turned into a horror story no one could have predicted. Sophie's background: a bright, adventurous spirit. Sophie Hartwell was born to Robert Hartwell, a retired software engineer, and Maria Sanders, a high school teacher, on August 25, 2000, in Seattle, Washington. Sophie was the couple's only child, and they doted on her, encouraging her adventurous and curious nature. When Sophie was just 9 years old, the family relocated to the small town of Linton, near the coast of Vancouver Island. It was a picturesque town, surrounded by the stunning beauty of the Pacific Northwest. Sophie grew up with a love for the outdoors. She adored hiking, kayaking, and swimming, often spending hours exploring the forests and beaches near her home. Sophie excelled academically and socially. She was well liked by her peers and known for her infectious laughter and boundless energy. Her parents often joked that Sophie's personality could light up even the darkest room. It was during her teenage years that Sophie discovered a love for art and photography. She would often be found with her camera, capturing the breathtaking sunsets over the ocean or the vibrant wildlife of her hometown. Her dream was to become a wildlife photographer and travel the world, documenting the beauty of nature. The meeting that changed everything. Sophie met Lucas Verona on a summer evening during a local festival in Vancouver in 2016. At the time, Lucas was a 25-year-old commercial helicopter pilot, visiting Vancouver for work. Lucas was a charismatic and confident man, known for his adventurous lifestyle and love for flying. Sophie, just 16 at the time, was immediately captivated by Lucas's charm. Lucas, in turn, was drawn to Sophie's youthful energy and her zest for life. Despite their significant age difference, the two quickly developed a connection. Their relationship blossomed over the following months, much to the dismay of Sophie's parents. Robert and Maria were concerned about the age gap and Lucas's intentions. They tried to discourage Sophie from pursuing the relationship, but she was deeply infatuated and believed Lucas was the love of her life. By the time Sophie turned 18, she and Lucas decided to elope. They married in a small, private ceremony in Lisbon, Portugal, on September 3, 2018. Sophie's parents were heartbroken, but ultimately chose to support their daughter, hoping that Lucas would make her happy. A picture-perfect life. After their marriage, Sophie and Lucas moved into a charming two-story house in Belmont Ridge, a quiet suburb of Toronto. Lucas's career as a commercial helicopter pilot provided them with financial stability, and Sophie focused on creating a warm and loving home. The couple welcomed their daughter Mia in July 2020. Sophie embraced motherhood with open arms, dedicating herself to raising Mia and creating a nurturing environment for her family. Lucas, meanwhile, continued to work long hours, often traveling for his job. From the outside, their life seemed idyllic. They were a young, attractive couple with a beautiful daughter, living in a cozy home and planning for a bright future. A few days before the tragic incident, Sophie and Lucas had purchased a plot of land on the outskirts of Toronto with plans to build their dream home. Sophie's parents had generously gifted them $60,000 to support their endeavor, and Lucas had stashed an additional $15,000 in cash in their home to help cover construction costs. The couple, like many others in Canada, preferred to keep some cash on hand instead of relying entirely on banks, especially since Lucas was wary of fluctuating interest rates and financial institutions. But neither of them could have predicted that this prudent decision would lead to such devastating consequences. The night of the incident. On the night of June 1st, 2021, Sophie and Lucas went to bed after spending the evening watching a movie and discussing their plans for the new house. Mia was asleep in her crib, and the family dog, Daisy, a 1-year-old golden retriever, was curled up at the foot of their bed. At around 4:30 a.m., Lucas awoke to the sound of breaking glass. Before he could react, 3 masked men burst into their bedroom. The intruders were armed and aggressive, demanding to know where the couple had hidden their money. Lucas was overpowered and tied up, while Sophie pleaded for the safety of their daughter. The intruders ransacked the house, tearing through drawers and cabinets in search of valuables. Lucas, blindfolded and bound, could hear Sophie's desperate cries as she tried to protect Mia. In an attempt to save his family, Lucas told the intruders where to find the cash. The money was hidden inside a hollowed-out section of an old board game box on the shelf, an unconventional hiding spot that Lucas believed would be safe. The men found the money and took it, but their rampage didn't stop there. They continued to search the house, grabbing jewelry, electronics, and other valuables. Daisy, the family dog, barked furiously at the intruders, but her bravery cost her life. The men strangled her with her own leash to silence her. A brutal attack. The situation escalated when one of the intruders became agitated and violent. Despite Lucas's pleas, they turned their attention to Sophie. They smothered her with a pillow while she fought back with all her strength. The attack was relentless. Sophie, a trained swimmer and fitness enthusiast, struggled fiercely, but she was overpowered. Lucas, unable to see but hearing every horrifying sound, struggled against his restraints. After what felt like an eternity, the house fell silent. Sophie had succumbed to the brutal assault, and the intruders fled the scene with their loot. The aftermath. Lucas managed to free himself enough to reach his phone. It took him over 30 minutes to call emergency services. When first responders arrived at the scene, they were greeted by a devastating sight. The house was in shambles, with furniture overturned, drawers emptied, and belongings scattered everywhere. Sophie was found lifeless on the bed, with Mia crying beside her. Daisy's lifeless body was discovered hanging from the staircase. The police launched an immediate investigation, initially believing the crime to be a home invasion by a professional gang. However, inconsistencies in Lucas's story soon came to light. The truth unravels. For weeks, police pursued leads, interviewing neighbors, reviewing security footage, and examining the crime scene. But certain details didn't add up. The basement window, which Lucas claimed was the intruder's entry point, was too small for a grown man to fit through. Data from Sophie's smartwatch revealed that her heart rate spiked at 4:05 a.m., consistent with a physical altercation, and stopped completely by 4:11 a.m., before the time Lucas claimed the intruders arrived. Lucas's own fitness tracker showed that he was moving during the time he claimed to be tied up. Additionally, the memory card from the security camera which Lucas said was stolen, had been removed hours before the attack. Finally, Sophie's diary, discovered during the investigation, painted a troubling picture of their relationship. She detailed arguments, her desire to leave Lucas, and her fear of his controlling behavior. Confronted with the evidence, Lucas eventually confessed. He admitted to killing Sophie in a fit of rage after an argument escalated. He staged the home invasion to cover up the crime. A tragic legacy, Sophie's death, left her family and friends devastated. Her parents, who had trusted Lucas with their daughter's happiness, were heartbroken by the betrayal. Lucas's actions not only ended Sophie's life, but also left their young daughter without her mother. Sophie was laid to rest in her hometown of Linton, where she had spent the happiest days of her life. Her family vowed to honor her memory and fight for justice, ensuring that her story would never be forgotten.